Hey, what's up, gamers? You know, storytelling in video games has reached incredible heights, with some games delivering narratives that rival the best movies and novels. Well, today I'm counting down the best story-driven games that left me speechless. And before we start, I need to warn you that there will be spoilers. If you haven't played these games, consider this your spoiler warning. I'll try to keep the big twist vague where I can, but I can't promise it. Of course, this list is personal and totally subjective. There are so many story-rich games out there and I can't include them all. So let me know in the comments, is your favorite game here or did I miss it? Tell me. But for now, let's start with Lost Odyssey. Developed by Mistwalker and released in 2007, with a 78 on Metacritic, it's criminally underrated. But for those who've played it, it's really unforgettable. You play as Caim Argonar, an immortal cursed to live for over 1,000 years. He's lost his memories, and as the story unfolds, you piece together his past through the 1,000 years of dreams. A series of short stories unlocked through the game. The stories, they're devastating. One recounts how Caim bonded with the family, only to watch them grow old and die while he remained unchanged. Another describes his inability to save a young girl during a war. Each dream feels like its own heartbreaking novella. It's speaking of mortality, grief, and the passage of time. The overreaching plot involves Caim uncovering the truth about his immortality and fighting against an evil sorcerer who's exploiting humanity. But for me, the personal stories, the little moments of human connection, are what makes Lost Odyssey stand out. You have to know that the dreams were written by a Japanese novelist, Kiyoshi Shigematsu, adding an extra layer of literary depth.
Turn! Never! I shall break the link!
Next is the iconic Silent Hill 2, developed by Konami and released in 2001, and recently, you know, the remake from this year in 2024. With a stellar 89 on Metacritic, this game is not just about horror, it's psychological storytelling at its peak. The story follows James Sunderland, who receives a letter from his late wife, Mary, urging him to meet her in Silent Hill. As he explores the town, he encounters disturbing manifestation of his guilt and grief, including Pyramid Head, a literal representation of James' inner torment. The real gut punch comes when you learn the truth, and yeah, this is a big spoiler, so skip this part if you don't want to know. Well, James, killed Mary, unable to bear watching her suffer from a terminal illness. Silent Hill and everything James experiences is a reflection of his guilt and repressed emotions. Each character James meets in Silent Hill, like Angela, a victim of abuse, and Eddie, a bullied man, represents different ways people cope with trauma, making the story feel deeply layered.
Don't be. I told you.
Now the next one, Mafia, developed by Illusion Softworks and released in 2002. I have to confess that this one is my personal favorite. I remember as a kid in the early 2000s that the story really touched me. It earned an 88 on Metacritic, and its story is timeless, so much so the 2020 remake used the exact same narrative with updated visuals and voice acting. I have to recommend this one for you. You play as Tommy Angelo, a taxi driver in the 1930s who gets swept into the criminal underworld. The story is told in flashbacks, as Tommy, now working with the police, recounts his rise in the Salieri crime family. The narrative is a slow burn showing how Tommy goes from an everyman to a ruthless gangster, but it also explores his struggle with mortality, his torn between loyalty to his family and his desire to leave the life of crime behind. The ending is a gut-wrenching betrayal. Yeah, this is spoiler, you know. After cooperating with the police and going into witness protection, Tommy is gunned down years later as revenge. And you can see this in Mafia 2 also, a stark reminder that you can't outrun your past. You know, the developers took inspiration from real Mafia stories and films like The Godfather and Goodfellas, for example, which explains the cinematic feel of this game.
You did it! But
Yakuza 0, released in 2015 by Ryuga Gotoku Studio, is often hailed as the best entry in the series, and for good reason, you know, because it scored a 90 on Metacritic. Set in the 1980s Japan, the game tells the origin stories of two fan-favorite characters, Kazuma Kiryu, a stoic, honorable man trying to clear his name, and Goro Majima, a tortured soul forced into a life he never wanted. Kiryu's story revolves around his loyalty to his clan and his fight to protect a valuable piece of real estate, while Majima's story is more personal, a tragic tale of love and sacrifice as he's tasked with assassinating a woman he once cared for deeply. What makes Yakuza 0 so special is its ability to balance intense drama with quirky humor. You know, you can totally be in a cutscene which is really heartbreaking, and 1 minute later you're helping a dominatrix improve her customer service skills. Now, Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Part 1, released in 2013. It's a masterpiece of storytelling. With a 95 on Metacritic, I absolutely loved this one as much as I absolutely hated the second part, but that's another story, so let's focus on the first one. The story begins with Joel, a man broken by the loss of his daughter during a viral outbreak. Years later, he's tasked with escorting Ellie, a teenage girl immune to the virus, across the post-apocalyptic United States. Over time, Joel and Ellie form a father-daughter bond, but the story isn't afraid to ask tough questions about mortality. The gut punch comes at the end when Joel, this is a spoiler if you didn't realize, faced with losing Ellie to a surgery that could create a cure. So, will he choose to sacrifice Ellie for the cure and save the humanity, or will he choose to sacrifice the humanity to save Ellie? I can't tell you, you have to figure it out. The game's creator Neil Druckmann said he was inspired by his own fear of losing loved ones, which adds a personal layer to the story's themes of survival and love. Now, you know that Rockstar Games delivered two masterpieces with Red Dead Redemption in 2010 and its prequel Red Dead Redemption 2 in 2018. The first game scored a 95, while the second earned a staggering 97 on Metacritic. Red Dead Redemption 2 focuses on Arthur Morgan, a loyal member of the Van der Linde gang, whose journey is one of redemption. As the gang falls apart due to greed and betrayal, Arthur tries to make peace with his choices before an ending so memorable that I can't spoil here. You need to experience it yourself, trust me. Red Dead Redemption 1 continues the story with John Marston, Arthur's protege, as he seeks to leave his outlaw life behind and protect his family. But in the end, John sacrifices himself for his loved ones, solidifying his legacy. It's a masterpiece in every detail and so immersive. For example, did you know that the voice acting in both games is so nuanced that actors like Roger Clark, who plays Arthur by the way, recorded hours of alternate dialogue based on whether Arthur was honorable or ruthless.
Gentlemen, this is a robbery. Sons of Dutch.
Now let's talk about SOMA, a haunting narrative experience developed by Frictional Games and released in 2015. While it holds an 84 on Metacritic, the game's story is what truly elevates it. SOMA begins with Simon Jarrett, an ordinary man who suffers a traumatic brain injury in a car accident. Seeking treatment, Simon agrees to an experimental brain scan, only to wake up in an abandoned underwater research facility called Pathos 2. As Simon explores, he discovers that humanity has been wiped out by a comet. The facility's AI, known as the Warden Unit, has been attempting to preserve human consciousness by transferring minds into machines. The questions becomes, what does it mean to be human? The emotional climax comes when Simon learns the horrifying truth about his own existence. He's just a copy of the original Simon's mind placed into a robotic body. He must confront whether his identity and his very being has any meaning. And you have to know that the developers intentionally avoided traditional jump scares, focusing instead on psychological horror and existential dread. Now the next one, Planescape Torment, which is an RPG, I know. Developed by Black Isle Studios and released in 1999, is often cited as the pinnacle of narrative RPGs. With a 91 on Metacritic, it's one of the most thought-provoking games ever made. You play as the Nameless One, an immortal who awakens in the city of Sigil with no memory of his past. The story is a quest for identity as the Nameless One uncovers the lives he lived, the people he's wronged, and the reasons behind his curse. The game is famous for its rich philosophical storytelling. Instead of focusing on combat, it asks big questions. What is the nature of regret? Can a person truly change? Even the NPCs are unforgettable. From Morte, a wisecracking floating skull, to Dak Kon, a warrior philosopher with a tragic past. Almost every line of dialogue in the game was handcrafted by the writers, with over 800,000 words of text, more than many novels. Released in 2017 by Giant Sparrow, What Remains of Edith Finch is a poignant narrative game that holds an 88 on Metacritic. The story follows Edith Finch, the last surviving member of her cursed family. As she explores her childhood home, she discovers the tragic and often surreal stories of her relatives. Each chapter represents a unique gameplay experience, from controlling a child who believes he can turn into animals to guiding a photographer through a daydream while working in a cannery. The game's emotional impact comes from how it portrays life and death. Instead of focusing on despair, it celebrates the beauty and creativity of each Finch family member, even as their story ends in tragedy. The developers intentionally designed the game to be completed in one sitting to make it feel like reading a novel.
We made it real.
And last, but certainly not least, is GTA 4. Developed by Rockstar Games, obviously, and released in 2008. It scored a 98 on Metacritic. Yeah, you heard that well. 98, cementing its place as one of the greatest games of all the time, and I have to confess, my personal favorite on this list, and also my personal favorite in the GTA series. So we're waiting for GTA 6 to see if it can beat it, but for now This one is my favorite. You play as Nico Bellic, an immigrant coming to Liberty City to chase the American dream. What he finds instead is a city of corruption, betrayal, and broken promises. The story explores themes of loyalty, revenge, and the moral compromises we make to survive. What sets GTA 4 apart is Nico himself. Unlike other GTA protagonists, Nico is deeply flawed but undeniably human. His past as a soldier haunts him, and his interactions with Liberty City's diverse cast of characters, from his cousin Roman to mob boss Dmitry Raskalov, are compelling. The endings, which depend on your choices, are devastating no matter what you pick. No happy ending available here. So Nico will have a very hard choice to make, and the game drives home the idea that in Liberty City nobody gets a happy ending. As always, Rockstar spent years perfecting Liberty City, making it one of the most detailed and immersive open worlds of its time.
We're going to the top, Nico. Soon, even you will forget
And
about
here you have it. My top picks for the best story-driven games ever made. These are stories that really touched me, and I hope they'll do the same for you. I could have mentioned many other games here. The Mass Effect series, Uncharted, Metro, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, 13, and so on. But tell me, did I miss your favorite? Maybe. Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming nostalgia and lists. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much I enjoyed making it. Sorry again for the spoils, and until next time, happy gaming everyone, bye bye.